So as I said at the top of the show, the governor unveiled phase 2 of his year 1 agenda today. It can all be summed up in one word, and that is jobs. Over the next 6 months, Cuomo says that he and his cabinet will focus on redesigning state government and also helping the various regions of the state jumpstart their economies. This is a very ambitious project, but as we have seen over the past 6 months, the governor is not afraid to take on big tasks. Joining me now to discuss phase 2 are our insiders. Every week they share their insight from years and years at the state capitol. Here with me this week is Bruce Jory. Bruce worked for 2 Democratic governors. He is now a consultant at Corning Place Consulting and also an adjunct professor at UAlbany. And across the table we have Dave Catalfamo. Dave was the communications director for Governor Pataki. He is now a partner at Capital Public Strategies. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll start with whoever wants it. What's with this branding? Phase 1, phase 2.
I think phase 2 is kind of clunky. Kind of feels kind of, 5-year plan-ish sort of thing.
Well, it's actually New York is open for business.
Well, that's good. And actually, I like the messaging underneath it. I just didn't like phase 1, phase 2. I mean, because priority 1 was supposed to be jobs, 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 but now we're going to put it to phase 2. I don't like the whole juxtaposition of the language, but I like the focus. The focus is right. And the reality is that the things that he did and the things that the legislature did together with him actually set the stage, I think, so far as stabilizing the state's business climate. So now you can take on the more specific tasks.
I'll defer to the communications guy on what you'd call it, but I think the messaging is quite right. It's really twofold. It's jobs, jobs, jobs. That's clearly what New Yorkers want, the American people want. They're frustrated that neither party in Washington has had that singular focus on job development, so it's the right message. The other part is this reinventing government is interesting. He saw when he was in the Clinton administration, Al Gore and President Clinton get an awful lot of mileage out of that. If they can really make it a management tool so that it's not a one-day press release but becomes a part of an ongoing process of delivering services in a better, more business-like, more efficient fashion, they're onto something, and the two combined, jobs and redesign, could be a powerful message.
I hear words like management tool, and I start thinking about Anderson Consulting.
No. What you mean is instead of, you're right, and I'm properly chastised for using.
You. I'm just saying, what I mean really, there is a question here, Bruce, seriously, and I don't mean to chastise you for your word choice. What I mean is, the economy is really something that is out of the governor's hands. I don't even know how much the president can achieve through the...
I don't agree with that. I heard that was on your program last week. I heard it again, the reporters on. The governor can make the state more competitive vis-a-vis other states.
Yeah, but the economy writ large, he has zero to do with.
Not zero. People make decisions about where they live, where they invest, where they create jobs, and the state's overall tax structure, bureaucracy, its friendliness to business, its zoning, its property taxes, which the cap is certainly some. They all contribute to it. So the notion that the governor doesn't affect jobs is a big deal. I mean, look at investments in research and education, in creating a university system, investments in things like global foundries and in GE. They create clusters of activity that draw other people and other businesses. So
I'll give you a story you guys covered in Syracuse and in Binghamton. Heather Bruschetti, the Business Council, told me about it. It was on biopharmaceutical clusters, and it was interesting. They got bipartisanship. Valesky, Magnarelli, and John DeFrancisco in Syracuse talking about what it could mean. Good message to have that kind of bipartisanship. Binghamton had Senator Libous with Assemblywoman Lepardo talking about the fact that here is an industry, biopharmaceuticals, that has one of the highest multiplier effects going. So, if you get into that on top of marketing, hey, we put a property tax cap in, we had a no new taxes budget, we had an on-time budget, you can market it.
Okay, but what percentage of this is just getting the word out? Is just being like, hey, I mean, it's an ad campaign. New York is open for business. The governor said today it will be an international ad campaign.
It's a lot more than that. We've talked before about hydrofracking, right? And again, Department of Labor in Pennsylvania said over the last year they created 65,000 jobs in that industry in Pennsylvania.
Right.
I think the upstate unemployment number is about 250. I mean, that's not a real number in my view, but I mean, imagine if you had an additional 65,000 jobs in upstate New York. It's transformational. And so the policies matter, and they matter across the board.
And here's what we've never done as a state on a bipartisan basis. We have a lot of small growth companies downstate who have space problems and rent problems. In upstate, we have a very highly educated workforce with abundant and relatively cheap land, predictable power costs, and when you manufacture, we have water. We don't have any of those water land issues that they have
we don't have
in New Jersey.
Crunch in
we don't
terms
have
of
that.
getting it to people.
So if we marketed that better and packaged it so that we didn't say, oh, you don't want to stay in Long Island or you don't want to stay in Westchester, let's bring them to Rochester, let's bring them to Syracuse, let's bring them to Binghamton, let's bring them to Buffalo. And if they did that in an efficient way, and we're already second in the jobs produced nationally behind Texas. If we got closer to Texas, the state could have something to feel good about.
Let's just, the fundraising filings that we've been talking about, these are starting to come in more and more. Actually, the deadline was Friday for filing them, for making them public. Some of them are, some stragglers coming in now, but we see that an enormous amount of money was spent, almost $2 million, to lobby in favor of passing gay marriage. On the other side, almost zero. I'm surprised. I'm very surprised. Now, the National Organization for Marriage says we're going to raise and spend $2 million. We're going to take out these yes voters who are responsible, these Benedict Arnolds, they're calling them. Okay, I get it. The Catholic Church...
I thought I was bad about historical analogies. I wonder how many New Yorkers know who Benedict Arnold is.
Right.
I do.
I'm not. Okay. Well, there will be a test after this segment. Bruce will offer a tutorial. So, no, seriously. I mean, are you surprised of the lack of? There was a lot of hot air. We had people on this show, many of them, and I'm not downplaying their point of view. I'm just saying, why didn't they put their money where their mouths were?
I'm not prepared to concede in this case that actually money made a big difference so far as how the vote came out.
Okay.
I really don't. I think it will make a big difference down the road so far as protecting people who they agree with them, how they sided with their issue. We're going to see that. Yeah. But I really don't think that actually, played a big role in how the vote eventually turned out. I really don't.
I tend to agree. This was something deeply felt by people on both sides of the issue. Public opinion was moving in favor of support. It doesn't really surprise me that they have trouble generating. The only real group that's contributed huge money to the opposition to gay marriage has been the Mormon community. And the Mormon community, while its roots are in upstate New York, is not really a factor anymore.
More history complements a true story. Now, I just want to say, before we leave this topic, I don't want to dwell on it too much, because what's done is done, and obviously the July 24th, and now we're seeing there's so much demand in New York City that you have lottery. They're going to do by lottery people to get married. On the flip side, you have these clerks upstate who are actually saying, you know what, I'd really rather not, and so I'm resigning. Wasn't the religious protection clause, I mean, wasn't this exactly what some of those opponents said that they were worried about?
Well, look, a clerk could not get up and say that, you know what, I don't like, I'm an Orthodox Jew, and I don't think you should marry outside your faith.
Say they don't want to give Plan B, for example.
You have some of that, but deep down at the bottom level, you have the law is the law, and the law must be enforced. And if you don't want to enforce the law, you always have that principled right to resign, but you don't have a right to supersede or nullify a law by your own view.
And I respect the people who they stand on their principles and on their beliefs, and they're making choices because of that. But to go back to the fundraising really quick, the one thing that does stand out to me that I do think is if it were another group doing it, we'd be crying bloody murder, which would be the co-location of the donations to meetings and things like that. And I think that A, there's no need for it, and B, that if we're another
talking
group,
about like the $60,000 that went from the Empire State Pride agenda to the governor.
It's meant, and look, it's meant to send a message clearly, and Mayor Bloomberg as well, making his donations to the individuals that he believes support it. Again, I just think that it would be smarter to have more time in between, candidly. And I think that if it were another group or another issue, then there would be, and it was like, you know, a corporate interest, we'd be screaming bloody murder.
Very
This is what-
ecumenical for a nice Catholic kid like David to give us Victoria.
Yeah, we would say it's pay to play, and
it.
it's wrong, and we got to stop this.
We
But
would.
because it's a social issue that has some credence in the media and with a lot of people,
But there's a difference. Pay to play is predicated on I'm giving a contribution for
Who's to say that didn't
for
happen
profit.
here,
But
though?
no.
And I'm
but
not saying that did happen.
But
I
here,
really don't believe it did.
On both sides, it was based on belief.
But there was
You
no
don't
money
have-
on the other
Participate on
side.
vote. Trading money for votes is illegal,
I
is it
don't-
not?
Yeah, but I don't see where this crossed the line. If they showed
it didn't cross the line.
more Victorian sensibility and waited 3 weeks, does it ultimately make a difference?
I'm just pointing out
Victorian
the obvious
sensibility.
logic, which if we're a corporate interest that was doing this and there was a corporate
I
vote,
agree with that.
we would be all up
I
in
do.
arms saying, "Oh, that's ridiculous! I can't believe that happened."
Right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for the same reason that that when the evangelical community gave money, we judge it differently than if it was casinos.
Right.
The only problem you
That's
have is
right.
when
Yeah.
Ralph Reed
That's right.
got involved with
Okay,
the casinos.
before
I'm
we,
sorry.
speaking of money, and I
Yeah.
don't want to get too far down, I want to talk about judicial pay. Because
Yes.
it looks like the judges are in for a huge pay raise, actually. And it's like huge. It's like from 136 on average to someplace pushing around 200,000. Now that's probably a bit high, but at 170, 180 is not a bit high. This is something all in one fell swoop you think the voters are going to swallow?
I think I have no idea what they're going to do, but I think they'd be smarter if they had it staggered and did it over
Which
a
they
multi-year
very well
period.
might, because the state can't afford it otherwise. I don't
Because the state can't afford it because of what other public employee plans to do. Now, having said that, we have a long-term problem. You have good judges there now, but over time, you're not going to be able to continue to recruit top-quality legal talent when a first-year associate can make more than a seasoned judge.
Well, last word to you, because I'm unfortunately out of time, which is unfortunate. And you guys will be back next week, I hope, in some iteration. I know eventually you'll both be back. Bruce Story, thank you very much.
you.
Dave Catalfamo, thanks for being here.
Good to see you.
And happy, Friday. Summer. It's not
Summer.
Friday.
Hot.
In anticipation of a happy Friday.
Yeah, I need a vacation.
Yeah. You're allowed.
Yeah.